The most dangerous person in any room isn't the one shouting orders. It's the one quietly observing, nodding, and gently steering the course of events. They smile, agree, and seem agreeable, while guiding your every move without resistance. You've been taught that power looks loud, forceful, and dominant. That's a myth. Machiavelli revealed centuries ago that seeming powerless is often the quickest route to real influence. It's a tactic used by the most cunning leaders in history, controlling outcomes while others fight for the spotlight. Right now, someone is using this on you. They're at your job, in your social life, maybe even in your home. As you focus on bold threats, they're quietly making every important decision, and after this, you'll never see quiet agreement the same way again. The illusion of powerlessness. Machiavelli lived during the cutthroat politics of Renaissance Italy, where showing strength too openly meant assassination or exile. The leaders who endured weren't necessarily the fiercest. They were the ones who understood how to look weak while staying untouchable. Since fear and love rarely coexist, he wrote, it's safer to be feared than loved. But there's an even more potent trick, letting others feel secure when they should be alert. This subtle art of appearing obedient while holding the reins plays on a flaw in human perception. We're drawn to loud authority and miss quiet influence. We guard against loud opposition, but let manipulation slip by unnoticed. We trust the helpful, underestimate the passive, and confide in those who seem to follow. Think about how this plays out in real-world settings. The person who openly pushes back gets flagged as a threat. They draw resistance. People prepare to block them, but the person who agrees in meetings, supports decisions, and plays nice while building alliances in the background. They raise no alarms, they gain power invisibly. This isn't lying or trickery, it's positioning. The seemingly obedient often do agree sincerely, but they choose their moments, building a reputation that gives weight to their input when it really counts. They express doubts behind closed doors, then show alignment in public. That makes their agreement look thoughtful, not automatic. This method taps into a deep truth about human behavior. We let our guard down around those who don't seem threatening. We open up to them, share our concerns, our plans, our vulnerabilities, because we don't see danger in them. Machiavelli understood that knowledge is power. The one who seems harmless learns more than those who shout for control. They get early insight into strategies, concerns, and changes before they happen. They stay informed while others remain in the dark. The paradox: the more harmless you seem, the more dangerous you become. The more you seem to follow, the better you can lead. Trust is the entry ticket, and once inside, power can be gathered quietly. The structure of quiet control. Strategic obedience is not passive, it's deliberate. It's a move that looks like surrender but sets the board for dominance. These people don't challenge authority, they make themselves critical to it while keeping the power to step back at key moments. Machiavelli knew that power must seem legitimate, but legitimacy doesn't always require visibility. The promise made was necessary at the time. The promise broken is necessary now, he wrote, knowing that flexibility beats rigidity. Those who appear compliant can move freely, and when they finally push back, it's a shock, making their resistance stronger and more effective. This approach thrives through overlapping strategies. First, visible loyalty builds trust. That trust can be spent when it matters. When a usually agreeable person finally says no, or offers a better path, people listen. Their input is rare, and therefore more valuable. Second, their loyalty gives them access. They get invited to key meetings, included in confidential conversations, and offered a seat at the table. Third, this access allows for intelligence gathering. They learn not just what's happening, but who's behind it, what alternatives exist, and how decisions are really made. That knowledge becomes leverage. Finally, and most crucially, it gives them the power to pull out at the perfect moment, causing disruption from a source no one anticipated. This is why Machiavelli warned, never attempt to win by force what can be won through cunning. He wasn't talking about lies. He meant allowing others to misread you to your advantage. The quietly obedient don't pretend to comply. They simply don't correct the assumption that compliance equals loyalty. They let small agreements look like total support. Machiavelli's key insight was that in human affairs, appearances shape outcomes. The one who seems weak invites challenge. The one who seems dangerous gets shut out. But the one who seems helpful, they're trusted, included, and eventually they wield the most influence. The psychology of hidden resistance. Why does this strategy keep working across cultures and centuries? Because it's rooted in our nature. Machiavelli saw it clearly and used it to devastating effect. Modern psychology confirms what Machiavelli sensed long ago. We categorize people quickly and then cling to those assumptions, even when new evidence contradicts them. Once someone gains a reputation for being cooperative, others stop watching them for signs of resistance. That creates a dangerous blind spot. The person who's always gone along can cause the most disruption, precisely because no one expects it. Machiavelli noted that people are so eager to respond to immediate needs that a skilled deceiver will always find willing targets. But the most effective deception isn't about lying, it's about intentions. The obedient player doesn't hide what they do. They allow others to misread why they do it. That's why history's most impactful power moves have often come from those least suspected. The loyal advisor who turns on the leader, the dedicated employee who starts a rival firm, the trusted coworker who leaks damaging information at just the right time. The real power lies in surprise. This tactic also plays on something psychologists call the fundamental attribution error. Our habit of assuming people's behavior reflects their character rather than their situation. When someone consistently complies with authority, we assume they're naturally obedient, not strategically biding their time. We confuse calculated choices with personality traits. That mistake gives cover to those using compliance as camouflage. Their actions get seen as passivity, not positioning, and because they're not seen as a threat, others don't prepare defenses. But the benefits go beyond tactical invisibility. The obedient actor also avoids the stress of constant conflict. They conserve energy for when it really counts. Their relationships stay stronger because they're not always pushing back. Machiavelli would call this smart timing. The wise act immediately on what the foolish delay. And sometimes, a single well-timed shift in loyalty is more powerful than years of open defiance. The servant leader paradox. Modern management celebrates a style called servant leadership, where the leader supports the team rather than commands it. But few realize that this model echoes Machiavellian principles. The servant leader appears focused on others' success. They ask rather than tell. They guide instead of push. They seem to follow the group rather than control it. Yet somehow, outcomes tend to reflect the leader's original preferences. Their questions steer decisions subtly. Their facilitation narrows the field of debate. What looks like shared decision-making often hides quiet control. This isn't manipulation, it's strategic leadership. People resist being controlled, but they follow willingly when it seems their own interests are being served. They reject commands but accept suggestions. Machiavelli understood that shaping desires is more secure than forcing actions. A ruler who wins people's minds doesn't need to rule their bodies. The servant leader achieves this by aligning their goals with what the group believes it wants. Instead of imposing a plan, the leader helps others discover it. Instead of demanding agreement, they create a sense of choice. This method requires real insight into what others care about. The effective servant leader finds paths that benefit both themselves and those they lead. And within that shared success, they exert significant influence. They guide discussions, manage agendas, decide what gets considered, and shape how others think. They seem to serve but actually lead. The paradox: this often leads to better results. The group feels empowered, the leader gets what they wanted, and the system runs more smoothly. Morale stays high, productivity climbs, resentment stays low. Everyone wins, but the person who appeared to follow ends up quietly in charge. The information advantage, Perhaps the most underrated part of the obey in public, rule in private strategy is its ability to generate exclusive access to information. People seen as non-threatening often get told things that would be hidden from rivals. In Machiavelli's world, information was power. The prince who knew a plot was coming could stop it. The advisor who understood court politics could survive them. The diplomat who learned a rival's plan could outmaneuver it. Today, we're flooded with data. The issue now isn't finding information. It's filtering, interpreting, and acting on it quickly. And the quiet, trusted figure has the upper hand. They get information others don't. People speak freely around them. Their trustworthiness earns them access to insights others miss. They also interpret that information better. Because they aren't seen as ambitious, others speak openly around them. And when they act, they don't raise red flags. If an obvious rival shifts strategy, people brace for conflict. But when a trusted ally moves, no one sees it coming. When someone trusted makes a sudden change, others assume they must have good reasons, and often follow their lead. This information advantage compounds over time. The person who consistently gets better information makes smarter decisions. Smarter decisions lead to better outcomes. Better outcomes reinforce their reputation for competence, which in turn gives them access to even more valuable information. The publicly obedient person becomes a trusted node in the network, an information hub. They're the one who hears complaints from subordinates and concerns from superiors. They learn about new opportunities from one team and potential obstacles from another. They collect intelligence from across the organization while appearing to be above the fray. Machiavelli would recognize this as the fox's strategy: gather many kinds of knowledge, stay adaptable, and act only when the knowledge turns into advantage. The fox knows many things, he said, while the hedgehog knows one big thing. The obedient actor is the fox, flexible, observant, and dangerously underestimated. The timing of revelation, the most crucial element of the obey in public, rule in private. Strategy is timing, knowing exactly when to reveal your true priorities. Machiavelli wrote that the wise man does at once what the fool does finally, but he also understood that doing the right thing at the right time often matters more than speed. The person known for compliance must resist the urge to act too soon. Early resistance lacks credibility. Late resistance misses the moment. Frequent resistance destroys the surprise that makes it effective. The ideal moment often comes during transitions, new leadership, strategic pivots, emerging crises, sudden opportunities. These moments break patterns and expectations. They create openings for the obedient actor to shift position without destroying their carefully built reputation. In times of calm, the strategy is about gathering trust and information. In times of change, it's about using that trust and information to shape outcomes. Mastering this rhythm takes patience and self-control. You must watch chances pass you by, accept decisions you dislike, and let others take credit for your ideas. You must continue the performance of loyalty, even when it goes against your immediate interest. But when the right moment comes, your influence can far exceed that of louder voices. Your rare objections carry more weight. Your proposals receive real consideration. Your leadership is welcomed because it doesn't look like a power grab. Here's the key insight: power deferred is power multiplied. The person who could demand attention constantly but chooses to wait can often command decisive influence when it truly matters. They trade frequent small wins for occasional major victories. Machiavelli understood that real power is sustainable power. The ruler who wins every battle but alienates allies is doomed. The advisor who pushes every issue but loses access to decision makers is irrelevant. The actor who exercises obvious power but builds resentment will eventually fall. Strategic patience avoids all three. Modern application: so how does this centuries old insight apply today? The principle is timeless, but the settings have changed. In corporate life, This strategy means quietly becoming indispensable, building relationships across departments while appearing focused only on your immediate tasks. You support others' success without taking credit. You share useful information without expecting favors. You help launch initiatives without claiming ownership. Over time, this creates soft power, real influence without formal authority. When layoffs come, you're the person too useful to let go. When promotions open, you have supporters across the organization. When strategies shift, you're the one who understands every side. In politics, the strategy takes the form of quiet coalition building. The person who works with all sides without being claimed by any side becomes the bridge everyone needs. They can negotiate what ideologues can't. They mediate when others won't talk. But this only works when the neutrality is real, not a mask for hidden agendas, but a commitment to win solutions. If neutrality is just a pose, people will eventually see through it. But if it's a method for building durable consensus, the position becomes unassailable. In social life, the same principle creates what might be called social utility. The person who helps others succeed without demanding credit or payback slowly becomes central to their network. Others go to them for advice, help, or introductions. That centrality generates influence that self-promotion can't match. When they ask for help, it doesn't seem selfish. When they request a favor, it's seen as fair. When they make a move, others want to support it. The ethical dimension, of course, some will argue that this strategy is manipulative. Machiavelli anticipated the charge. It is better to be feared than loved. He wrote, if one cannot be both. He wasn't advocating cruelty. He was acknowledging that effective action often looks questionable to people who don't understand the stakes. The ethics of obey in public, rule in private, depend on the motives behind it. If it's used to exploit others for selfish gain, it is manipulation. But if it's used to create order, protect shared values, or lead wisely without provoking conflict, it becomes a form of strategic wisdom. Power is neutral. The hands that wield it determine whether it heals or harms, and history shows again and again. Those who appear weakest often possess the deepest understanding of how and when to act. Outcomes that benefit everyone. The heart of true leadership, the true test of leadership, lies in the relationship between apparent interests and actual interests. When a person appears to serve others, but is only advancing themselves, that's deception. But when someone appears to serve others and is actually advancing shared goals, that's diplomacy. The difference isn't cosmetic, it's ethical. Machiavelli understood that human nature often forces us into situations where the most ethical outcomes require methods that seem unethical to outside observers. Sometimes, the only way to help people is to not look like you're helping them. Sometimes, the most effective way to lead is to avoid looking like a leader at all. This isn't a justification for any action in pursuit of any goal. It's a recognition that the relationship between means and ends is more complex than rigid moral frameworks allow. The person who refuses to use strategic tools because they look manipulative might do less good than the one who uses those tools wisely and selflessly. The key ethical question is this: does the strategy serve shared interests or only personal ones? The publicly obedient person who advances both their own goals and those of others is practicing enlightened self-interest. The one who advances only their own goals at others' expense is practicing exploitation. Machiavelli's insight was simple but profound. The morality of the method depends on the outcome it serves. The prince who uses tough methods to establish lasting peace serves his people better than one who uses kind methods and creates chaos. The advisor who uses quiet influence to secure good policy does more good than one who uses loud authority to promote bad decisions. The limits of the strategy, like any strategy, obey in public, rule in private, has its boundaries. It works best in structured environments, places where relationships endure and reputation matters. It loses power in chaotic, fast-changing settings where trust doesn't accumulate and appearances are quickly forgotten. It also requires real competence. Someone who performs obedience but can't deliver results will eventually be exposed. This strategy buys time, builds leverage, and opens doors, but it can't replace skill. Another challenge: as more people become aware of the method, it becomes harder to use. Once others recognize the strategy, they grow suspicious of compliant behavior and watch more closely for hidden agendas. The method relies, in part, on not appearing to be a method at all. But the greatest limitation is psychological, the need for self-discipline. Most people crave immediate rewards. They want credit now, appreciation now, visibility now. But the publicly obedient person must be willing to let others take the spotlight, to keep quiet when it hurts, and to delay gratification for months or years. That's why the strategy remains effective even after being widely studied. Understanding it is easy, living it is rare. People break character at key moments. They get impatient. They reveal too much. They push too early. Machiavelli saw this flaw in human nature. Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs. He wrote that the deceiver will always find someone to deceive. In this case, the deceived is often yourself, fooled by the craving for recognition into abandoning a winning position. The ultimate paradox, but here lies the most powerful twist in the entire strategy. The person who starts by performing humility often becomes genuinely humble. The one who pretends to serve others often finds joy in that service. The person who defers their interests for strategic reasons can eventually find real meaning in advancing the collective good. Why? Because behavior shapes identity. The person who consistently acts with discipline, discretion, and service eventually becomes that kind of person. The strategist who begins with calculation may end up with conviction. The actor who starts by mimicking virtue may end up embodying it. They no longer perform trustworthiness. They are trustworthy. They no longer pretend to cooperate. They believe in cooperation. What began as instrumental becomes internal. This doesn't invalidate the strategy. It completes it. The one who genuinely becomes what they once pretended to be gains a kind of durable influence that no tactic alone could ever deliver. They no longer need to calculate every move. Their power becomes natural, trusted, almost invisible, because it's rooted in who they've become, not just what they do. Machiavelli may have seen this coming. His real lesson wasn't that morality must be abandoned, but that appearances often must be managed, and paradoxically, that managing appearances well enough can change who you are. In the end, the person who truly masters obey in public, rule in private, doesn't just win power. They become someone worthy of power. They don't merely influence others. They earn the right to be followed. They lead not through force, but through example. They serve not as manipulators, but as guides. That's the final paradox. The most dangerous person in the room is not the one who knows how to control others. It's the one who has learned to control themselves so completely, so quietly, so completely, that others want to follow them. And that's Machiavelli's greatest lesson, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone wise enough to see it and strong enough to live it.